Thursday night showdown, and tonight I hope you can hear me better than you could last week. You're probably gonna have visual issues with me today, so if I look like fucking Bart Simpson or like I'm going through a slideshow, no, nobody's watching this for me anyway. You
No.
ready, Tyson? We got a fun game.
Dude, it's about time, man. Let's do this. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, what's going on with you, man? Bengals versus Ravens. We got a good one, man. We got two teams lost close games last week, division rivals. This should be a fun one, dude. Bengals, Ravens, man, I'm excited. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man. Look, I like the Bengals a lot. It's really good to see them kind of recover from their 1-3 start. I do think it's a better league when they're competitive, and just the AFC in general just has a lot of young talent. So, but as always, I'm excited to watch Lamar Jackson play. When we were in Arizona, we got to see it live, which was really kind of cool. You know, missed Kyler, but we got to see Lamar fucking Jackson. So
yeah,
I'm excited for this, man. We just haven't had two good teams play on Sunday night in a while. It's been one good team and one bad team, or two really fucking awful teams.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is like, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like the first Lamar slate that we've done this year, right? I mean, dude, like, we're used to doing tons of these. Like, this is what, our third season doing these showdown shows. And we used to just do a million of these, and he'd be 12K, and you'd always want to lock him in at captain. He's a lot cheaper this week, so it's a little bit juicier, and we have some injury stuff, and we have some value to talk about, which is nice. So Bengals, like I said, going into Baltimore, should be like a 60-degree, 50-degree type day. Perfect weather. Doesn't seem like there's any rain or anything like that. 4-point favorites at home. Looks like the money's coming in on both teams here. It's a 46 total. A lot better than that. What was it? 35 total, 36 total the other day. So there should be some points scored here. The Ravens defense is damn good this year. Kind of flying under the radar, to be honest. I didn't realize how damn good their defense was until I really dove into the slate. And you've got the Cincinnati Bengals, who, look, these teams played earlier in the year. Baltimore won that game, but it's the Bengals in the first few games. You can't really count that against them at this point. We know what they are when it comes to beginning of the year. They've started to trend up a bit, but we got a T. Higgins injury. T. Higgins is going to be out, and they lost last week. Same with Baltimore in a crazy game. So, dude, this feels like a fun matchup. Like, what are you looking for in this game? Like, do you feel like this can be a high point scoring game, or as usual, are we going to hit the under on one of these night games?
Look, man, you're right on with the Baltimore defense. Their defense is really good, and Sunday we saw the Browns and Baltimore play each other, and both defenses are still really good. They still ended up with a bunch of total points. Now I know both defenses had a touchdown in that game, but I think that this is one that can hit the over. Right? Our quarterbacks are too good in this matchup. I think that they're more likely to overcome the defenses than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy because Burrow last week, that game was out of reach. It was a 10-point game with like 3 minutes left. They got and thankfully the Bengals got an interception. They scored a touchdown. They ended up tying the game, but Tyler Boyd dropped a touchdown in the end zone that probably would have won them that game. And then you got C.J. Stroud, the amazing rookie who is now an MVP candidate. Drove them down and won it at the end. And you had a similar kind of game for the Ravens and the Browns. Deshaun Watson finally looks like the guy that they paid him to be. They still drove down and were able to win that game at the end. Dude, this matchup here, like I said earlier, Ravens won that matchup earlier this year. You had 220 yards from Burrow. You had about 237 from Lamar. We saw Gus Edwards get involved early on this season. This feels like just a completely different matchup, though, because the Bengals are a different team at this point, in my opinion. When it comes to...
I mean,
go ahead.
Bengals were 1-3 coming into that. I mean, look, so we can look at last year, too. Like, this is just a really interesting matchup in general. Last year, I think, the Bengals won twice, and then they ended up losing to Baltimore in the playoffs. So these are two teams that do have a lot of history with each other. I look, man, I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than the last one. And so, look, we talk about it all the time. It's really hard to beat a team twice in the same season. They already lost on the road, or they won on the road. Now they're coming back to Baltimore to try and win. It's going to be a tough game to win, especially again, right? Don't underestimate when we're looking at these stats. These are holistic stats over the course of the year. Bengals started off 1-3, so we just got to be careful when we're kind of reading into this a little bit, and as we build for the rest of the show, right? We want to make sure that we're kind of accounting for that slow start.
The Bengals really need to win this game, though, dude, because they can even this up and at least have a chance to win this division going into the end of the year. But this is like a must win, in my opinion. Obviously, it's not a must win because there's a lot more games to play. But if they really want to win this division, they have to win this game. Ravens third in rush rate. When you look at pass versus run percentage, they run 43% of the time versus 56%. On the other side, the Bengals are second in pass rate. They pass the second most in the league compared to running. So we're going to see a lot of balls thrown in the air. We know what to expect from the Bengals. We know what to expect from the Ravens. But interestingly enough, it looks like the Bengals, they're last in ADOT, which is about 6.5 yards in average depth of target, which is kind of interesting. All right, let's look at some matchup stuff here real quick. We're going to move along here. But I wanted to really point out the fact that this Bengals defense is not good. Like they haven't been good, and they're not going to be good this year. They're 29th in rush defense, 30th in coverage. There's some other, there's some other stats to throw out there, but those are pretty important when it comes to, guess what? The Ravens like to run the ball. And guess what? The Ravens can pass the ball if they want. 116.2 rate allowed to tight ends. So they're one of the last teams in the league ranked wise against tight ends this year. We'll see that in a second when I show you the fantasy points that they're giving up per game to tight ends. So it looks like Mark Andrews could be in a good spot. Joe Mixon, dude, four touchdowns, 59 yards a game. He got there last week because of that touchdown at the end of the game on the 1 yard line. But dude, Lamar Jackson should outrush Joe Mixon in this game. I mean, realistically, Lamar Jackson has more rushing touchdowns in the season, and he's getting about 50 yards per game. So even more of a reason to play him at captain. You look at the Ravens here, fourth in defense, second in coverage. Rush defense, last week they gave up quite a bit of yards to Singletary, which is kind of surprising to me. Singletary hasn't done shit all year. So, we talked about Joe Mixon and maybe not being there, maybe not having a great year this year, but based on last week, he's got an opportunity in this game. Pass defense, holding wide receivers to 69.6 rate. That's first. 39 sacks this year. First. Quarterback hits first. Lamar Jackson, like I said, about 50 yards per game, rushing, and 5 touchdowns. Kind of interesting. Let's look at Zay Flowers here. We're going to jump around. Cody Main, of course, putting out some fire tweets. Basically, Zay Flowers' role is increasing, and he is clearly the number one guy. But Keaton Mitchell is a guy we need to talk about because, dude, is this guy going to get opportunity in this game finally? Because if he does, we're going to want to play him because he's super explosive. Now, he's a similar size type guy to Singletary. Like, maybe do they try to get him involved? I don't know, dude. But all I know is that if he touches the ball, there's a chance that he can score. So thoughts on Keaton Mitchell, and we know that Gus Bus is the guy. We know that Justice Hill is here. What are your expectations for Keaton Mitchell in this game? Because I think a lot of people are thinking about that, and I think his ownership is going to be relatively high.
Yeah, man. Look, I like Keaton Mitchell. I don't think that you need to be playing him in any cash formats. It's going to be tough, kind of just that middle price range with the studs that we have on a slate like this. It's going to be tough to build like that, right? We got to make sure that we have some value that we like if we're going to be able to do that. But look, I think Keaton Mitchell is an interesting play for GPPs, right? And he might even be better for just captain plays at GPP.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, he's priced nicely, so you can probably play him fine in GPP. But yeah, man, I like him. I think he's going to probably take over more of that Justice Hill role, and it'll be more of a timeshare between him and Gus. I think Hill's really the RB3 and has been.
Yeah, you'd think so. All right, let's get into injuries because there's a decent amount to talk about here.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
So big news here. Obviously, T. Higgins is out. We've got some other guys that are out for the Bengals. So we've got Sam Hubbard out. That's big for their pass rush. Questionable Charlie Jones, another wide receiver. Andre Losivas, I think that's how you say his name. He's been getting involved as like a number 4/number 3 with T. Higgins injury. He's out too. So now we're going to have a $200 guy playing wide receiver 4 that could potentially get involved. So we'll see on that. We'll kind of talk about that as we start building or get through our breakdown. On the other side, though, there's more to talk about here. Devin Duvernay is questionable, so the kick return guy, not a huge deal. We're not going to want to really be playing him unless you're doing some weird defensive kick return stacks or some bullshit like that. But the big name here is Marlon Humphrey. He's doubtful. He's going to be out. Now, he missed that game earlier this year against the Bengals. That was with T. Higgins, and they seemed to do fine. Jamar Chase didn't absolutely crush because this defense overall is very good. John Sampson, their guard on the left side, he's questionable. And Ronnie Staley, their left tackle, is out. So the left side of this line here is a little bit beat up. Humphrey looks, is ranked 35th at 113 cornerbacks. He's still a very good cornerback. So him being out is kind of a big deal. What jumps out to you here? Kyle Van Noy, some of these other backup type players are questionable. We got to keep an eye on that. But kind of a big deal to be missing some offensive linemen here in this game for the Ravens. And what do we do with T. Higgins being out? We're going to go back to the well with Tyler Boyd?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, T. Higgins being out really kind of just opens up some other stuff, combined with, Andre Iguodala or whatever being out for, wide receiver 4. That just opens up some $200 value that we might be able to play in those spots. Without it, right, we would have kind of been really tight on this slate. The pricing's kind of fucked.
Yeah.
Other than that, man, yeah, Ronnie Stanley being out, it sucks, but you said it, right? Cincinnati's defense is just dog shit. So I really think they'll be able to overcome this, and they run the ball so much. Just run to the other side. It'll help kind of alleviate some of the stress.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, so let's get into some matchups here. Like I said earlier, tight ends. This is from the Fantasy Fellowship on TikTok. Tight ends, Cincinnati Bengals giving up 15.47 PPR per game to tight ends. It's worth mentioning. It stuck out to me, especially when you're playing up against one of the best tight ends in the league. It's worth mentioning. Let's just get into the breakdown, dude. You ready for this?
Let's do it.
We have to use SaberSim, or we can't use SaberSim right now because they are down. So we're going to go ahead and use just Draftkings. Let's do it. Get into this breakdown. Here we go. Break it down. That didn't work, but hey, you guys get the point. Breakdown. All right, so we can't go position by position. I guess we are going to still, but it's going to be a little bit harder without SaberSim, so just bear with us. So quarterbacks here.
We'll let you sort by position?
No. Yeah, it will. Okay, well that's better. That helps. So let's go to quarterbacks. Let's try to do the show like we normally do. So Burrow, Jackson, Lamar Jackson's 10.8K on a showdown slate. Play him, and play him. Joe Burrow's 10K. Dude, this feels like a situation where you probably want to get to both quarterbacks, but like if I had to choose one, I'm obviously choosing Lamar Jackson. Burrow had 2 big picks in that game in the fourth quarter that should have lost him the game. Now, I'm not taking any points off, from him. It's still Joe Burrow and still a 1-game slate, so you probably want to get some exposure. But how many 2 quarterback lineups can we do in a game like this, especially with the tough matchup for Joe Burrow in this one, dude? So thoughts on these guys? I think you just got to – the biggest question here is not do we play Lamar Jackson, is do we play him at captain or do we play him in the flex, right?
Yeah, dude, I don't look, we're never going to see Lamar Jackson price 10,800 for a showdown slate again. So fucking play him at captain, lock him into flex. If I lose because Lamar Jackson didn't have a good output, I can live with that. Now, the one thing I think that we do need to account for is we haven't necessarily seen quite the volume that we were told we were going to see in the passing game this offseason. They're still very much a run-heavy team. But guess who also runs the ball a lot? Lamar Jackson. And guess who's also really good at fucking running the ball? Lamar Jackson. Sorry about the cussing today, guys, but I'm really excited about this show, right? We got an actual quarterback playing another actual quarterback with some real receivers and stuff. So, look, Lamar Jackson, 100% in my lineups. I'm going to have him at captain, probably like 40, 40% if I can build that many lineups with him. Joe Burrow, right? Again, like I think the slate's going to come down to what guys are you paying up for. You're going to have Lamar, you're going to have Joe, you're going to have Mark Andrews, or you have Jamar Chase. That's your 4 dudes you're paying for. You're probably only going to be able to choose 3. That said, I want Lamar, I want Joe Burrow in as many lineups as I possibly can, man. I know he struggled a little bit last week, but just like we know that the Ravens are going to run the ball, we know that Joe Burrow is going to throw the ball. They pass the ball 70% of the time. Like that's bullshit, man. That's just like that's not you don't win that way unless you're the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
So look, he's going to throw for 300 yards.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to throw the ball 40 times. So where do those 40 targets go? You know what I mean? So let's get to running backs. Where are you? Let's start with Baltimore. So Gus Edwards is 7K. Keaton Mitchell, that's his name, right? Keaton Mitchell. I was like, K Mitchell. Yeah, my bad. 5,600. Justice Hill, 2,800. So, dude, Gus Bus, he's 7K. We know that he's the guy, but he's kind of touchdown dependent, to be honest. And a guy like Keaton Mitchell, he's 5,600. He's priced up. I feel like he's going to be owned quite a bit because he's a sexy name, and we know like what he can do, what his upside is. I just don't know if he's ready to get more than 25% of the snaps. Is Justice Hill taking the back seat now? Every once in a while, Justice Hill is going to get a random touchdown from the goal line, which makes no sense with a guy like Gus Edwards on the team. As well as you got Lamar Jackson running at the goal line. Similar to a Josh Allen situation, you got a lot of running backs to deal with. You got different guys playing at the goal line. Can we trust Gus Edwards in this matchup? They're going to run the ball a shitload. So I feel like we got to get at least one of these guys, or at least attempt to get one of these guys out of Gus, Keaton, and Justice Hill. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I like Gus. Look, Gus Edwards at 7K. He could easily have 80 yards and a touchdown. That's more than enough to pay off that that price tag. All right, he's getting a decent amount of volume. Last week is the only week he didn't really crush, but for the most part, like outside of week 1, like those are solid numbers. Even then, right, 9.8 points, like that's fine for 50 or. Well, not 7K, but look, man, he ends up with a touchdown in that Cleveland game. All of a sudden, he's at 16.8, and he's probably in the optimal. So, I love Gus Edwards. I think he's probably a fine captain option as well at 7K. It's going to give you a lot of flexibility. But the other 2 guys are really interesting as well. Justice Hill being 2,800. I think that's something we're considering. I know that the volume's not necessarily there. But, outside of the Cincinnati guys, like Cincinnati wide receivers, I'm just not sure that, there's value that I'm comfortable punting with. Keaton Mitchell, he's fine, 5,600. Or, yeah. I mean, play him if you can get to him. He's more of a GPP matchup, right? He's priced up because of his long-ass touchdown last week. And the week before, right? It was a 60-yard touchdown. Jesus.
I think
man, like, look.
Sorry, dude, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think we could fade Keaton Mitchell, like if you wanted to, like for across the board if you wanted to. It's risky because, like I said, he's got high upside. But if he's on the field, there's always a chance that he can go off and score, which is scary. But I don't have ownership because of SaberSip being down. But you got to think he's probably going to be 20+% owned. He's probably going to be right around where the kickers are at, just because he's hyped right now. You could fade him. You could. I don't know that I'm going to do that, but you could at 5,600, right?
Yeah, man. And look, at that price too, again, like we talked about the high-end guys, right? If you're going to have 3 of those guys, you're probably not going to want to spend $5,600 on Keaton Mitchell. That you need to find something else in that mid-tier range that you're going to be a little bit more comfortable with. He might be fine for GPPs, but again, I think that'd be the only place that I'd be comfortable playing him.
All right, so running backs, Mixon is 9,600. Didn't have the best game last week, but still ended up in the end zone. They don't run the ball a ton. If they're down in this game, you're going to not feel so great about having a $9,600 Mixon. I don't even see how you could play him unless you really punt at captain. But I want the 3 dudes. Like I want the 3 top guys. I want the top 4 guys. We're just not going to be able to afford them. So is this a situation where maybe if you don't have, if you're playing a lineup without Burrow, maybe you go down to Mixon? I know that's not a catch-all type rule, but is that something maybe that you're going to be looking into doing? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So look, man, I don't know if I'm going to have any lineups with Mixon. 9,600 is just a little bit too expensive for me. He really hasn't done much to pay off a 9,600 price tag. If he has 20 points, like he did against San Francisco, that's something that's worth considering. But I would probably argue that's an outliering performance, anyways. Baltimore's defense is good, and again, we know that they're going to throw the ball 70% of the time. I want Joe Burrow. I want Jamar Chase. If you're thinking about, fading somebody in the big three, right? Again, it's kind of just like we were talking about with, Keaton Mitchell or Michael Keaton, whatever the fuck his name is. Like he's going to end up garnering ownership because of his price tag and his explosiveness. Joe Mixon is going to be the opposite of that because of his price tag and how shitty he's been most of the year. Kind of just a quiet name. Like I think people are going to forget about him. So, like, if you want to get weird in a GPP, maybe you throw him in a captain lineup and you fade Joe Burrow and maybe just go him and Chase to capture all the Bengals offense. But I don't think I'm going to do that.
Dude, what do you think about, because of how high priced everybody is and because everybody's going to want to get these top dudes at captain, like, is it possible that Joe Mixon comes in like around the same ownership as Keaton Mitchell? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he could even be lower, man. Just because of the way that he's priced, he could be sub 25%. Like if he's under 30%, like I want to see Saber Sims projections at some point. But when they're back up, right? And by the way, just to anybody watching this, especially you, Saber Sim, we know it's not their fault. It's a Google outage. It's not Saber Sim.
Yeah.
Saber Sim's awesome. But anyways, yeah, look, man, I think Keaton Mitchell has a better chance of being higher owned just because of his price tag, right? Like 5,600 people will stomach it. Yeah, fuck it, I'll throw him in.
Yeah, I mean, Mixon could be one of these like contrarian, like low-owned dudes that like he's one of the best players on the field. Just a tough matchup, and he's too expensive. So it's kind of interesting. It could be a situation where you might want to focus on him in either your GPP builds or your single entry, and then fade him in one or the other. Wide receivers. Let's talk about the Bengals here. So Jamar Chase is 11K. T. Higgins, he's 8K, but he's out. Confirmed. I'm glad we did this show a day later because now we know for sure he's out. Tyler Boyd, 6,800. Dude, this guy got what, 12 targets? He got super involved, and he would have even had a better game if it wasn't for that drop touchdown at the end there. He's absolutely going to be involved. We got Irwin here at 4,400, so he's kind of in this kicker range. Trent Irwin is. He caught a touchdown on the opening drive. And, he was relatively involved. He didn't have, like, an incredible output, but he was priced well last week, and he was chalk, and for a reason, it paid off. He's $4,400 in this game, dude. He's number 3 wide receiver, going to be on the field a lot for a team that throws the ball a lot. I think you have to consider him. I think in certain circumstances, you might want to get him in a couple captain builds so that you can jam in all these studs in the flex. Because if he gets another touchdown at that price tag, you're going to want to play him over these kickers absolutely here. So let's talk about these top 3 guys for the Bengals, and then we can kind of look at it, down in the basement here for some of these other random $200 guys.
Yeah, man. Jamar Chase. Obviously, play him as much as you possibly can. Look, I like Tyler Boyd, 6,800. I think Tyler Boyd is also one of those interesting captain options. Especially, I mean, his volume and targets last week was pretty crazy, right? I mean, 12 is a pretty decent number.
22
man.
fantasy points without a touchdown.
8 receptions. He's still. Say that again.
22 fantasy points without a touchdown. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he makes that catch. What is that? That was
game
was
winner.
that a pretty decent catch? Regardless, it would have been 6+, right?
7.
So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
all of a
exactly.
sudden he's at 30+ fantasy points. So, look, man. Again, this isn't a great matchup, but we're looking for guys that we know can have game breaking speed. And to be quite frank with you, we talked about it in the best ball show before the season started. I thought T. Higgins was a guy that could potentially be moved before the trade deadline. And it's not just contract related. I think it's related to the fact that they had Tyler Boyd waiting in the wings and has been there and can be there too, wide receiver too.
Yeah, so let's look at the matchups here. So Jamar Chase, obviously, he's probably going to catch Brandon Stevens with Marlon Humphrey out. Ronald Darby will probably guard Irwin, whoever's on the other side. And these guys move, so who knows? This is a solid secondary. You see here this tweet by some dude that I don't know. I just found it by searching. But, this week 2 game, they had the same issue without Marlon Humphrey, and they did just fine in that game. Jamar Chase didn't light him up, and they had T. Higgins, so now it's even in theory, a better matchup. So it's something worth mentioning here when it comes to that. I think they're overall going to be fine, but it's just tough, dude. Like, this defense has the possibility of absolutely shutting these dudes down. Let's go to Baltimore now, wide receiver wise. Zay Flowers, 7,600. Odell Beckham, 5,200. Rashad Bateman, 4,800. You got Nelson Aguilar is cheap at 800. So Zay Flowers, clearly the number one, $7,600. I don't think he's gotten over. I saw a stat where it was like I don't think he's gotten over 70 yards in a single game this year, but still getting the usage and getting the opportunities. Odell Beckham had a nice touchdown reception last week. He took one to the house on a little slant route, looked good. Rashad Bateman, where's the numbers here? There's some numbers about Rashad Bateman looking good. Anyways, I think he's clearly the number two now. You're starting to see him move up to that number two when, in theory, beginning of this year, he was slated to be the number one / number two guy. So Bateman's 4,800. That's kind of interesting here. Thoughts on these top three guys? This feels like a situation where you don't have to play these guys, but Zay Flowers is always a threat to score and get involved, right?
Yeah, man. Coming into the season, I like Zay Flowers a lot. Like, he's just a solid prototypical wide receiver that you're looking for out of the draft. But at this point, it hasn't necessarily panned out as far as his touchdown production. He's leading the team in targets. He's got 66 on the season, 50 receptions, about 550 yards, but a touchdown, right? He has one touchdown. I think that came in week 1 or 2. So, I mean, that's something that, week 1 or
week 6.
Week 6?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Man. Anyways, so look, it's been a while since he had a touchdown. I think that that's the one thing you got to consider. This price, 7,600. It's going to matter. He needs to get 6-7 receptions and 100 yards, or it needs to be 460 and a touchdown. So I like him. I think he's probably a boom bust candidate. I think I like him more at captain than I do at flex. Otherwise, I think my core we'll get there is Mandrews and Lamar. Outside of that, I'm not too worried about Baltimore. But look, man, Zay Flowers, he's fine. Odell Beckham Jr., I don't think I'm going to have any. I think I might actually go a kicker on a slate like this for 5,200. Look, I just don't know if he's going to survive. I just feel like he could, tear his ACL at any point. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with him. And then Rashad Bateman, again, he's just overpriced. I'm just not too interested in many of these Baltimore wide receivers. I like Zay Flowers, and this is going to be a crazy take, but I after that, I probably like Nelson Aguilar the best at $800.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, man. And Zay Flowers, obviously 1 touchdown. Odell Beckham had 0 touchdowns going into the previous week. He's had 2 straight weeks with a touchdown. Rashad Bateman, no touchdowns. So these guys just don't really get
involved. Nelson Aguilar has 2.
Yeah, and Nelson Aguilar has 2. So who knows, man? I mean, at $800, you got to think about a guy like that and hope he can catch the damn ball. But he's proven he's still in the league. He's still in the damn league at this point. So who knows? All right, anybody else down here that we could talk about from both teams? You got Stanley Morgan from Cincinnati. It seems like he probably will be active. And he'll be the 4th guy. You guys need to jump in the Discord because we need to see who the inactives are and really dive into which one of these guys is actually viable. And none of them may be viable. It's totally possible. But when it comes to go ahead.
I think Kwame Lassiter had a target or some shit last week.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. So that's something to look at too.
I'll play him just as a throwback to the Cardinals,
Exactly. All right, let's go to tight end. So let's go Baltimore. Mark Andrews is the only guy we need to talk about. He's $8,800, dude. It's on paper a good matchup going against this Bengals defense, who's not very good against the tight ends. We've seen $8,800, dude. This is a total captain option. Realistically, save a little bit of money, but you still get that huge ceiling. Thoughts on Andrews? And we're not playing likely anymore, right? I mean, my best ball lineups are crying, but he's $600. He's just not getting involved at all. I don't think we're going to play him, right?
Well, I mean, I was hoping he'd be like 2,600, so I wouldn't play him. But it's $600. I'll probably have a few. So don't do that. Don't be me, guys. It's probably Isaiah is likely dead. Sorry, Mark Andrews, 8,800. He might be my second favorite captain option. The only reason he's not my favorite captain option is because we will never see Lamar Jackson priced down like this again for the rest of the season. If Lamar was 11K plus, and I know he's close. There's just no reason to not love Andrews, man. Like, what is he at 6 touchdowns on the season? They can't consistently rely on their wide receivers to get it done. He's the guy that they rely on to get it done, man.
Yeah, he's
I
the
don't know
number
what
one
anybody
option.
else needs to hear. Play Mark Andrews.
He's the number one option. He's the number one wide receiver. Let's just be honest. So if you had to choose one guy out of all these pass catchers, it's clearly Mark Andrews. But I feel like you could kind of play around with some captain builds with some of these other wide receivers. So let's talk about Cincinnati and their tight ends here. So Irv Smith had a lucky ass touchdown last week. The dude hasn't done shit all year. He has 89 yards, 14 receptions. A guy that was getting heavily involved last week to start the game is Tanner Hudson. He had, I swear to God, in scripted plays to start the game, he had like 4 or 5 straight targets on that opening drive. He was getting heavily involved. It slowed down a little bit there, but you're looking at a guy who has the same amount of receptions as the starter who in Irv Smith. Now he's $2,600, so they priced him up a little bit. But when it comes to value on this slate, a guy that's going to be on the field a lot and probably get a handful of targets, Tanner Hudson's probably the guy I'm looking at here. They do have like a 3-headed monster, more like almost like a 4-headed monster with these tight ends. Drew Sample's there. I know we did a showdown show earlier where Drew Sample was kind of like who we thought was the guy because Irv Smith was injured. Seems like Hudson is the dude, and Irv Smith to me is a complete fade option, right? I mean, he's $3K. If he was like $1,000 or $1,500 maybe, but because he had that touchdown last week, he's priced up a little bit. I'm fading him, right? What about you?
Yeah, I'm fading him. He was a guy I liked early on in basketball, and then I kind of just learned that they weren't going to throw the ball to him. Yeah, man, I don't like Irv Smith. He's probably not going to get any volume. Let's put it this way: Tanner Hudson got a third of Irv Smith's total volume last fucking Sunday. So, like, over 2 weeks, he's targets 18 targets, right? That's mostly from 2 games. We see that last game 7, right? So, like, we know that this is the guy that they're trying to get involved more consistently. Over the past 2 weeks alone, he has over half his targets. So, I like him, dude. I don't think he was properly priced. He probably should be closer to like 4,400, just considering how much volume that he's getting in the offense now. But it's one of those things to think about, right? Especially with Andre Iguodala on the IR. Maybe they don't have a 4th wide receiver. Maybe Kwame Lassiter's son isn't the guy that they want. Maybe it is Tanner Hudson who's running a little bit more out there in the tight end, more 2 tight end sets. Exactly. They're not running particularly well, so it's just worth considering.
Also, Mitchell Wilcox is $200. He did end up with 1 target last week. So I think these tight ends for the Bengals are somebody to target because the wide receiver depth is not quite there. All right, who's next here? Kickers and defense. So Justin Tucker, listen to this, $5,400 for a kicker. I get it. It's Justin Tucker. I totally understand that. But, I mean, come on. It's $5,400. Wouldn't you rather play Keaton Mitchell? I mean, I don't know. Maybe, depending, like if you, like maybe Justin Tucker is a cash option. I'd rather play Evan McPherson at 4K. He's $1,400 cheaper. Have you ever seen a price difference between 2 kickers on a slate like this?
I haven't. And I feel like Draftkings has been setting us up for this all year. They're like, this is why we've been pricing kickers at 5K so that we could price Justin Tucker at 5,400. Yeah. I mean, he makes 2 50-yard field goals. What is that? That's 10 points. It's unreasonable.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, they need to change that. We've talked about this in the Discord quite a bit is if somebody hits a 57-yard field goal, that should be a 5.7 points, not 5. Like that doesn't make any sense. And shit, at this point, they need to add the 60-yard field goal in there as well. For like a 6 point as well. So if you're gonna have kickers and shit on the slate, don't just fucking price them up. Change up the scoring a little bit to help us out, or to make it at least a little bit more interesting. Evan McPherson's 4K. I feel like he's a guy that I'm probably kind of interested in for single entry, being that cheap. I mean, come on, right? Thoughts?
Yeah, dude. 4K. I mean, out of all the value that we've seen, like for single entry or cash, he might be the one that I'm most comfortable playing at this point.
Ravens defense 4,600, Bengals 3,600. I don't really have any interest in Bengals defense, especially with their pass rush being kind of lacking at this point. But Ravens at 4,600. This is a showdown slate. It's a division rivalry. It's a Thursday night game as well. So we've seen some crazy shit happen. I feel like you got to get some of these defenses, and more likely you're probably going to want to go with the Ravens in this one. How much Ravens defense are you interested in getting on this slate?
I'm not sure, man. I think if there was a defense that I'd be interested in playing, it would be them. But I probably just won't end up getting to a lot of them. I'm generally hesitant on these short weeks, especially after I don't know, man. I just don't know that they're going to be able to come out like the top peak physical form, especially after that game against Cleveland. That was a heartbreaker.
Yeah, and these teams don't really practice throughout the week. They do 2 walkthroughs, and then they do like a walkthrough plus on Wednesday. So yeah, maybe that's better for them physically, but like getting looks and actually running reps, it might be a little sloppy. But hey, that does help the defense at the end of the day, because I feel like these offenses need more reps. All right, let's get into our captain option here. Ellie, we're going to do crown their ass, favorite captain on DraftKings.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Ellie, you're going Lamar. I'm going to have the most Lamar as well. But a guy like Tyler Boyd at his price tag, that's a lot of savings to throw at the captain spot. I really do think that he is in a pretty good spot here. We saw him with 12 targets last week. It's a tougher matchup, big time. But Boyd, they're going to have to rely on somebody in these short distances besides the tight ends and these backups. Jamar Chase is a home run type guy, but they're going to try to lock him down as much as possible. And I feel pretty confident that if Tyler Boyd beats the Ravens, that's probably in their game plan. Like, let's let these other dudes besides Jamar Chase beat us. Tyler Boyd's, he's what, 6,800 in the flex? What's his price in the captain spot? 12 or 10.2K. I think he's in a good spot, man. Thoughts? Any other captains besides Mark Andrews that you're looking into here?
I probably not, to be completely honest with you. I mean, if they wouldn't have, if T Higgins was in, I think it might devalue Boyd a little bit, and then you might want to get a little bit more spread out. But I think you can be pretty tight with this one. I think it's Tyler Boyd, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and then Chase. Obviously Jamar Chase.
Yeah, Yeah, and when it comes to value, you can play with some of these other home run hitter type guys, but I just don't. I think you stick with the top end dudes, and Boyd is the outlier because of his price and because of the T Higgins injury, and he's just mispriced. He should be, 8K on a slate like this where T Higgins is out. All right, let's get to our fade of the night here.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Hey, guess what? Irv Smith. He's probably going to get 2 touchdowns in this game, I'm assuming now, because we faded him. But he's probably, what do you think his ownership comes in? You think it's like 15% because he had a touchdown last week? I don't know. People maybe not pay attention, just looking at the box scores.
Yeah, maybe. I think that seems about right. And, he's in that middling price. So I think people will just click on him at times if they have that exact amount of salary left.
Are you completely fading him? I know that sometimes this fade of the night, if we pick a higher owned player that maybe just not having a great matchup, it feels like you could just be under the field quite a bit, like half the field, and still end up with 20% or so. But this is a situation where you either click him or you don't click him, and I'm not clicking him. Is that how you're rolling?
Yeah, so we were talking about in the Discord the other day about limiting player pool, and this was specific to NBA, but this is something you would consider for Showdown here, right? Like, Irv Smith is a guy that I probably would remove from my player pool entirely. So when I go to do 100 lineups tomorrow night or Thursday night, I'm not going to have 15% Irv Smith. I will be doing a full fade this time.
All right, let's get to a lineup builds. Join that Discord, guys. That's free. As well as we have our Monday night football shows that we do for the YouTube members only. If you click join down below, that's $3.99 a month. You'll get a Monday night show every week. And for the holidays here, man, I think we should do that Black Friday game specifically for the members. So you guys will get a Black Friday game and you'll get a Monday game as well. And then for everybody else, we'll do a Thursday all day game, the 3-game slate for Thanksgiving, and then we'll do a Thursday night game as well, in addition to the Sunday. All right, so let's build some lineups, dude. So let's look at our $50, $100 single entry with less than 1,000 entrants. We got to get a little different here, but we want to stay relatively high floor because you don't have to hit the nuts in these contests, and they pay out really well. So where are we going for captain here? Let's just put Lamar in to start. I mean, I think that Tyler Boyd is an option here in order to get a lot of dudes in the flex. But let's start with Lamar Jackson and see how impossible this is. Now, in this case, for a single entry, I feel like you got to get Burrow. Like we're going to basically end up with the decision between Jamar Chase or Mark Andrews. And that's a tough one. But because of the price, I think you probably got to go Mark Andrews here, right? Like, am I crazy to leave Jamar Chase out of this lineup?
I mean, no. I mean, do you want to just show the audience, like, throw him in and let's show everybody how impossible it is to build? Like, this is something that's just going to be GPP for us. Right now, you have to throw in Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah.
And then hope that you have a 3K guy that you like.
Yeah, it's like we can't even, we can get to Justice Hill.
Irv Smith.
Yeah, Irv Smith, exactly. And Nelson Aguilar, or one of these random tight ends. Or you could probably go with, where's he at? Hudson. And then like a dude like Aguilar. But I'm not doing that. Maybe you get to a $200 guy. You get to one of these $200 guys, wide receiver for the Bengals. I'm just not super interested. You put Wilcox in there, but now you got two tight ends from the same team. It's not something I'm doing. So to me, let's build one with Andrews, let's build one with Chase here for this like single entry build. So we got Burrow. Let's pair him with Boyd. You got to put Boyd in this lineup. He's a great price. That leaves us $8,200, dude. So like, is this a situation where we want to go down to McPherson maybe, and it leaves us with 4,200? See, DraftKings knows we can't get Irwin here. So you're in a weird spot. So McPherson or Irv Smith or Justice Hill, it's still tough. Would you not play McPherson here? Would you rather punt in this last spot?
Yeah, I mean, do we have any expensive guys worth playing?
Well, we can get to Zay Flowers.
Throw in Gus Edwards.
Edwards, exactly.
Zay, Gus Edwards, both fine, right?
Yeah, and then just punt with any of these dudes. Like anybody, like a $200 guy, in order to get a lineup like this for your single entry, could, like, to me, I think that's okay. That's just me. You guys can argue in the comments, but for a single entry, if you put in Drew Sample or, Aguilar, it's just a throwaway. Pick your favorite dude who you think can actually get a reception at this point.
I'm more comfortable with this than McPherson and fucking Irv Smith.
Let's see if we can get, instead of going to Flowers, yeah, we can't really, let's put in Tucker, and that at least gets us to Justice Hill or Hudson. So you got a 3-3 going on here. You got Lamar and the captain. You got Burrow with Boyd and Hudson, and Andrews and Tucker. This is a little bit better of a build, and this actually is probably going to be my favorite going into tomorrow and trying to figure out how to get a better version of this. Let's build one without Andrews, and let's go Chase. What did I do? No. We're good. Okay, so where are we at? Let's put in Boyd. I think you got to put in Boyd here. 6K. So now we're in a much tougher situation. Let's get Hudson. To me, I don't know why. He feels like he's trending up, and I feel like at $2,600 he's in a pretty good spot. Let's just throw him in and see what that does for us. Irv Smith, Justice Hill. You're in kind of that same situation. This isn't as good of a build as it was with Andrews, right?
Yeah, I don't like it. The only thing that the only way you can really come off of it is maybe if you're willing to go from Boyd to something else. But even then, I don't know. What would you go to? Boyd to Tucker, and then you're still in a weird spot for that last spot.
Yeah, Boyd's in too good of a spot, dude. So let's build with him at captain, actually, and see what we can get away with. I think this is actually going to be pretty nice. Let's see if we can get those four dudes that we really like. Where are you, Boyd? There he is. All right, Chase, Lamar, Burrow, can't get Andrews. So, still a pretty decent build here. You could go down to, Gus Edwards here or something to that effect, Lamar and Gus, and then punt with Aguilar or something. This just feels like you got to make a decision between, even here, let's fade Jamar Chase here because we got Boyd and the captain. Now, both of them can go off. We saw it last week. But just for sakes of this particular build, let's put Jackson and Andrews with Burrow and Boyd, and that gets us 10K. So do you want to punt first? How do you want to handle this? You want to get one of these studs? You want to get a pass catcher, another pass catcher for Cincinnati in here? Irwin. I mean, Irwin's in a good spot. I know we haven't really talked about him, but we could use him in single entry. We should probably use him here, right? Without Chase.
Yeah, sure. Throw him in. Let's see what we have left over. 5,800. I mean, yeah, you got all kinds of stuff.
Keaton Mitchell,
Tucker.
Now for a single entry, probably I'd go Tucker here. So we got Boyd at captain, Andrews, Jackson, Burrow, Irwin, and Tucker. What does it do for us if we go down to my boy Hudson here, 7,600? That's interesting. You can get yourself 0 left on the table with Zay Flowers. So Jackson, Andrews, Flowers, but we don't have anybody represented from this run game besides Lamar, which is a little worrisome. You could go Gus Edwards here and leave 600 on the table. There's a lot of options with Tyler Boyd at captain, like plenty. So let's build some tournament builds here, dude. Let's start with Chase. If we have Chase at captain, do we have to have do we have to have Joe Burrow? I think the answer is no.
Yeah, I don't think so.
You don't have to. I mean, you probably should.
This is probably going to be. It's just going to be tough, though, right? Because we still want to do Lamar and Mark Andrews.
We still do. If we put Burrow in, you're down here to $200 guy. Let's just put it to it. Let's put any $200 guy in. I don't care who it is right now. Who's like one? Let's put in freaking Wilcox, right? 3,700. Irv Smith, Justice Hill. So I suppose it's not terrible if you want to put Justice Hill in here. You got a nice little 3-3 here, but I don't want to punt twice like that. So it feels like let's leave Burrow out of this. Let's do what we did earlier where we put in Joe Mixon here potentially. Now we can't get to our boy. Where's he at? Boyd. But McPherson and then a punt. Is this a Hudson again? Where do we go here? Aguilar. Like this is tough with Chase at captain. He's the most expensive dude on the slate.
Yeah, look, man. I don't know if you're going to be able to do anything else with Chase at captain. I think you got to pull Mixon out and play McPherson as the second Bengal, and then kind of just see what you can fit in from there.
You get 2-4
right now. Yeah.
Gus
right,
Edwards.
even then, this is still uncomfortable. You throw in Gus Edwards, 2,900, handcuff with Justice Hill, or
it's not bad actually. It's not a bad lineup. Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson, Andrews, McPherson, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. That's kind of an interesting build, to be honest. All right, let's build one more here. One more tournament build. Where do we want to go here? Do you want to go lower? You want to go Zay Flowers? You want to get crazy with the Keaton Mitchell? Oh yeah, Andrews. We got to go Andrews. All right, let's see how that goes. So automatically putting Jackson in here. We're not going to be able to get to Chase and Burrow. Let's just do it and see what happens. That's 5K. That's not terrible. So if you wanted to go McPherson here, you could punt with whoever you want in this last spot. I probably wouldn't end up doing that. Let's not play Burrow here. Do you want to do a mix-in situation? It's only $400 cheaper. Or would you rather throw in at least Gus Edwards or one of these running backs from Baltimore?
I mean, this might be weird, but just the amount of volume that he had last week, if he doesn't have a touchdown, you can throw Tyler Boyd in this lineup.
Yeah,
because we're building for GPP, right?
GPP, yep, exactly. 8,200. So we could still get to Gus Edwards here if we wanted. Probably better to go middle of the road and not have to punt with some of these guys. So it's probably either like a guy like Keaton Mitchell. That leaves you 2,600. That's Tanner Hudson. That's not bad, dude. But here's the problem: is now you got 3 pass catchers without a quarterback. That's too much. I know he's cheap, but that's a little too much. So instead of Keaton Mitchell, let's just go down to McPherson. This feels nice, like Chase, Boyd, McPherson. That feels like a nice mix. Realistically, I'd like to get to Mixon in this lineup, but just not going to happen. And we got Justice Hill here. We got Irv Smith. I'm not playing him. We don't want to play Tanner Hudson, so probably Justice Hill. 3-3, right?
Yeah. So what happens if you pull out Chase and throw in Joe Mixon?
Let's try it. Mixon, Boyd. You could probably go down to...
Yeah, I mean, you're fine.
McPherson.
You can throw in McPherson if you want. Yeah,
Keaton
5,600 back into
You do a double kicker situation.
Yeah, double kicker if you're feeling wild,
That's 0 on the table. probably going to be duped, but you got Andrews, Jackson, Mixon, Boyd, McPherson, Keaton Mitchell. It's not bad. It's not bad. So what are your thoughts overall on Keaton Mitchell after building here? Like, are you going to, like, we didn't build anything with him at captain, but I'm sure it would be nice to take advantage of that and get that high upside with that price. What are your thoughts on Mitchell? Are you going to get to some of him? Like, let's say he's 20% owned. Will you be with the field on him, or like we were saying earlier, you could fade him altogether?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to be getting much to Keaton Mitchell. I generally don't get too excited when I'm dealing with timeshare running backs, and especially timeshare running backs where we know there's one specific guy. Gus Edwards is their guy, and that's really even secondary to Lamar, right? So, look, I think what you're dealing with is a high upside. He's explosive. So if you want to play him, a couple lineups in captain in a deep GPP, I think that's fine. But at his price, man, like I don't know if I'm going to be getting to him.
Final score prediction. By the way, guys, get us to 50 likes. That would help us out a lot. And make sure you guys are following us. Final score prediction in this one. What do you think?
27-23 Baltimore.
Yeah, I think Baltimore wins this. I think this is a 30-20 game. Low-owned guy you think can score. I'm going Hudson. I'm just doubling down on that since we've used him so much in the show. What do you think? Who's your low-owned guy you think can go off in this game?
You know what? Just because you had to say something, Isaiah Likely. Let's he's gonna have a touchdown.
All right, we'll see you guys for Sunday Night Football. Make sure you guys are following us. See you guys later.